Salam and peace. You're watching Muslim Network TV on Galaxy 19 satellite, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, as well as Apple TV. And we're always there on muslimnetwork.tv or website. This is a very unique experience. And today we'll be talking about something which started us all on the path of Muslim Network TV. Have you heard of a physician named Dr. Uzma Sayed? Probably not. Even I did not hear of her. She is chairperson of Long Island, New York's COVID-19 task force. She spent 16 hours a day, every day, in 3 hospitals taking care of COVID patients in New York. And she has 2 children and a husband as well. Nobody knows about her. 10% of all physicians in New York actually are Muslims. Nobody knows that there are so many Muslims trying to save lives on the daily basis in the pandemic, before pandemic, and probably after pandemic. Whose fault it is that our neighbors don't know that? It is our responsibility as Muslims, and I admit it. We're too busy pursuing the American dream. And it didn't occur to us, our neighbors don't know us. Our story is not known. And that was in our mind when we started Muslim Network TV, which you're watching. Thank you so much for watching. Tell your friends about it. But this was not born yesterday. This idea, thanks to some extraordinary good people, started 20 years ago when Muslims in America did something unique. You see, the Muslim, there was 6 million of us in America. Well, nobody counted. Census doesn't ask about religion, but there is a consensus in the community. There are about 6 million Muslims out there. We don't have a newspaper which reaches anybody. We don't have a radio which reaches anyone. We don't have a television which reaches to our neighbors until now. But this Muslim Network TV is grounded in an amazing experience of 20 years today, and that was the Daily Radio Islam. The Daily Radio Islam in Chicago was the only daily television radio programs Muslims have in the country. And that was merged into starting Muslim Network TV. So today we're going to celebrate 20th anniversary of Radio Islam, hopefully of Muslim Network as well, but of Radio Islam. And to do that is with me a person who gave her time, her mind, her heart, and actually some of her money as well. She was so committed to do that. And it is no other than Janan Hashim. Welcome to Muslim Network TV, Janan.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank you for honoring Radio Islam like this.
Janan Hashim is a lawyer. Her passion in civil rights law, but other things as well. She founded the Amal Law Group, and this is the first law group of Muslim women lawyers and led by Muslim women. And for 16 years, she worked as a host, sometimes as a guest as well. But it all started she being a producer, and she served on until 2016 on Sound Vision Foundation, which started Radio Islam and also Muslim Network TV. How are you today?
Doing all right. Thank you for asking. Everybody as well. So no complaints, just lots of gratitude. How about yourself? It's been too long.
Well, I'm doing excellent. I'm excited to talk about Radio Islam. I felt somewhat guilty that we rolled Radio Islam 1 hour into 24-hour television, but we did not celebrate. We did not mark it as such. And I said, this need to change, and because I keep, a couple of times it happens you're listening to Radio Islam instead of you're watching Muslim Network TV, and I said, oh, wait a minute, let me bring that transition into focus at this moment. So thank you so much for. I mean, if I have never, I have accused myself of not being enough thankful to people. And you are one of those people. And no
No,
one
no, no.
has
You,
given so much to Radio Islam as you have. So thank you so much.
it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to be a means to an end. And thank you to you and your brilliance and your forethought and foresight in utilizing the media, that opportunities that we have here in the United States to promote the voice of the Muslim, which it goes all back to how Radio Islam started every show, and it was with Dawood Warnsby Ali and his voiceover saying, "Everyone's talking about Islam and Muslims. It's about time that you talk." And that's true. And so if it weren't for you and your vision and being able to facilitate all of this, I don't think anybody's ever said thank you to you. So thank you to you and to the whole Sound Vision team for its belief in what can happen and for making it happen.
Well, thank you. It was an amazing team. I remember 7, 8 people digging in every day and getting it to. So let's remember who were. I mean, in the earliest team, you were there.
Mhm.
Aisha Mustafa, Frederick
Mhm. Yeah.
Zafiruddin, Samira.
Mhm.
Samira is still at CNN. The other day, I think I talked to her.
Yeah, CNN International, I believe. That was the unique thing about Radio Islam. It was, I feel that for many people who came through its doors, it was a springboard or a stepping stone to something bigger and better, and particularly in the field of media and in the field of journalism, which is important because 20 years ago we had a gross underrepresentation of Muslims being out there and being reporters and having that kind of experience to be in mainstream media. And so Sound Vision was able to provide that. And I remember when we were thinking about Radio Islam and what it could be and what it could mean, that was one of the ideas, like, hey, we could be this. And not only did we think of something that could happen, it actually did happen, which is really amazing. And so, yes, Samira was one of those persons. Later on, I think we had Tahar Rahman. She became one of the first reporters for a major news outlet as well. And she's now down in Texas, I believe, really making up a storm down there in the unique way that only she can do it. But we're talking about the originals. There was Imran.
Imran
Always
Hussain,
put together.
Kamran,
Yeah, Kamran Memon. Yeah. What I
Dr.
like,
Nasruddin.
mhm. And
Yeah.
I think what was really nice about this foundation that you laid as the executive producer is that we needed a variety of voices. We needed diversity. And I remember you pushing this and there was no pushback against it, but it was the way that you framed it was we need diversity, gender diversity, ethnic diversity, racial diversity, and age diversity. And even I remember you were the first one who I ever heard say this was religious diversity in terms of Sunni, Shi'i, convert, born into Islam, and all that kind of stuff. And you were able to maintain that throughout the years with the various hosts. And I think that's what really brought a unique voice to the table and a unique perspective. I remember when Urath Muhammad, Allah yarhamah, passed away, uh, it wasn't Janan Hashim who did the interview about the significance of his passing. It was Aisha Mustafa who was very involved with that, not just the racial group of Black Muslims in America, but had a direct connection to Warth Muhammad and his movement. So it just makes sense. What could Janan Hashim contribute to that conversation as opposed to Aisha Mustafa? So that was the benefit of having these diverse voices.
And Yeah,
I've missed your response, Brother Malik. It's always I try to give these profound thoughts, and then you're like,
okay. So let's
okay, maybe not.
no. We can make more conversational as well. Yeah, I think Aisha was on the show. I think it just took my memory to Imam W. Din Muhammad. That's what happened. I remember he just driving to Sound Vision when we were just close to where you came in first. I mean, close to Oprah Winfrey Studio.
Mhm.
So Imam Wdin Muhammad came driving by himself, and we had a good conversation there. He talked about his personal relationship with Malcolm X, and he also mentioned things about Aisha Mustafa. And I was just thinking that I have never shared those things with Aisha Mustafa, and one of these days I need to talk to her. But Aisha Mustafa was hosting the show when Denny Davis called in, Congressman Dennis Davis, and he told her on air that anytime on Friday I come back to Chicago, I tune into Radio Islam.
And that's impressive. I mean, the reach that we had, you never know what the reach is until somebody takes that step and that initiative to tell you as much. And then for it to be a congressman, it's like, wow. So yeah, no, this is impressive. And so what happens with that? You're having a congressman who taps into Radio Islam and hears what's on our minds in our perspectives, and then keeps that in mind when he goes back to Washington and is ruling on various legislative issues. So that's impressive. That's impressive. So again, kudos to you and the Sound Vision team for doing this.
Yeah. And let's bring in among the talking about the earliest team which came together 20 years ago, Janan Diab.
Yes, the producer who did it all. It was amazing. She had a journalism background, and she not just in terms of education and since graduating from undergrad, and she came in with it with the love of journalism, the love of Islam, and the love of broadcasting. And I remember every day she would write up the news so that she could have a quick 2-3 minute news piece that would be aired. She would produce the entire show, which involves so much work, from reaching out to the different guests who would be on the show, giving them all the necessary information, gathering the necessary information from them, working with the host to come up with the issues of how to frame the different segments of a show, and then producing it, going on the air, and you have the soundboard in front of you and you're playing your commercials, you're queuing in your hosts and your guests, you're getting your guests online if they're not in the studio. So much effort went into it. And if it weren't for her and her wonderful spirit of getting it done, the can-do spirit, and let's make this a professional show, I think we would have ended sooner than we actually did. So blessings to her for all of the dedication.
Her blood and sweat, I don't know how many tears are a part of that thing. I mean,
and she wasn't the only producer. I have to be fair. All of the producers really put in a tremendous amount of effort and dedication to keeping Radio Islam on the air and at the high quality level of production that went into every show. So she was the one who laid the foundation and the sweat and tears, and all of the other producers followed suit.
I mean, producers' work doesn't quite comes on the screen or on air, but without them, none of this could take place. And you were right about the Samira and Tahira, who went on into the mainstream, and they got their training here. But I remember a couple of interns also who ended up intern of Radio Islam, who ended up in mainstream media. So it became sort of a training ground for people to be able to. I think even those people who were physicians and lawyers and imams who were doing the show, I think they were able to learn things which helped them in their life or in their profession as well.
Oh, for sure. In my days of hosting, you know, the basic requirements of journalism and a journalist is you know nothing and you know everything when you're about to go into an interview, which means you have to do your research. You have to know what it is you're talking about. And in broadcasting, to have a really good substantive show, you don't ask the guest the basic question. You state the basic issue and then you go deeper with your question. So that required a lot of research to understand the issues. And there's so many things that I wouldn't have learned about if it weren't for being a host on Radio Sound, just because of carrying that responsibility of wanting to come off with a very polished show. You know, there's a certain level of credibility and reputation you want to maintain. And, you know, interviewing a Gitmo detainee, that was unbelievable. And reading his book, reading up on exactly what they experienced, and then asking the questions. It's just, you know, one of those interviews that I'll never forget. I remember I didn't know anything about NAFTA, and I had to do all this research, and now I know something about it only because of Radio Sub and interviewing different guests about that issue. So just two small little examples of, you know, the work that we did. We covered many issues, an array of topics. I always tell people it was a plethora of topics because we're not limited to one topic as Muslims, obviously. And in our programming, we purposefully made an effort to have a variety of topics so that we were not shooed into, oh, Muslims can only talk about one issue. So we made sure, I remember, I think there were like 9 main topics that we talked about, from domestic issues to international issues, science, the arts, and so on and so forth. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, because of that paradigm that we had established, it forced us into researching and learning more about issues that we would probably otherwise take the time to learn about.
You're watching Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and I'm talking with attorney Janan Hashim, who was among the founders of Daily Radio Islam, which merged into Muslim Network TV. We'll be right back after these messages.
What was it like when you started this network out, when you started Sound Vision those many years ago?
You know, after 9/11, one lady called me and she says, what is your channel which I can watch? And I say, I'm sorry, we don't have a channel. And you know what she said? She said, then how America will know about you?
SubhanAllah. Anything you want to say to the people who are watching? We had one sister who messaged that she grew up on Sound Vision. What do you say to the people who have been long supporters?
Thank you. Thank you. It is because of you we are able to do all of that. So the generation of Adam's world, you need to take it over for the next generation. And that's my invitation to you. So keep telling everybody where to watch. They can watch it on Galaxy 19 satellite, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, or easy thing, muslimnetwork.tv, or our YouTube channel or our Facebook channel. And with your help, inshallah, ladies, the one who called me, what channel should I watch Muslims on? Answer is here and now.
Open up your eyes.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, it's your brother Zain Bika from South Africa. One of the first educational programs ever produced for Muslim children was the ever popular Adam's World series. The colorful and comical Muslim puppets stole the heart of a generation. Sound Vision will be releasing brand new episodes of Adam's World with the launch of a Adam's World app. Subscribers will enjoy new Adam's World episodes as they are released, as well as all the classic episodes of Adam's World. So visit adamsworldapp.com now to learn more, subscribe and enjoy new adventures of Adam and his friends. And let's keep helping tomorrow's Muslims today. Assalamu alaikum.
It's Adam's World. Believe me, there's a lot to see. Bismillah. Let's explore.
Welcome back to Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and I'm talking with Professor Janan Hashim. I know you teach also, but are you still doing some teaching?
Yeah, I sure am. I've continued with McCormick Theological Seminary. I teach a course on religious pluralism and ministry, and we've also done a few additional courses on depending upon what's happening in the time. So we did this one on Arab reawakening and the Arab Spring. So that was pretty cool. And I've also taught at American Islamic College and Loyola University. So yeah, but just call me.
How current Radio Islam was in terms of talking about issues of which was happening. I mean, you mentioned Arab Spring and all that. So how Radio Islam was connecting with people?
You know, that was like the really cool thing, but probably also the hardest part about producing a show. For my shows, I typically had it broken into 3 sections. So we would have 3 different guests and 3 different perspectives that somehow we were able to fit together to make into a logical sequence. And so what that involved is going out into the field and trying to find people to speak on behalf of the different issues that are going on. So yeah, we just look at our network and just say, okay, if we're going to be talking about the Arab Spring, okay, let's get somebody who is an activist and who is involved, and let's go ahead and get somebody who was there. Let's get somebody who is from the old school and is seeing the changes and how they would go ahead and how they would perceive things. So that's how we would piece the shows together, and you just call person after person after person until you finally lock it in. And it was, as the executive producer, you're the one who said, you start at the top. I don't want a spokesperson. I want the person to be on Radio Islam. And so that's where we always started. We would try to go to the top and ask for that individual to speak on this specific issue and then go from there and see where that would take us. So because of that, for instance, with United Nations issues, we would frequently have on the head person from one of its divisions or departments on Radio Islam to talk about whatever disaster it would be, so to speak, that they would be addressing. I remember, speaking of disasters, when India had that horrible earthquake, and it was like around 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. It was on the weekend. And on the weekend, news channels always have their skeletal crews. And it was Radio Islam that actually had put the most time into that issue and knew what was going on. And we actually had somebody, I wasn't the host of that on that particular day. I think it was Maurice who was the host. And somebody actually called in from India to tell us what was happening on the field, what the reports were saying and all that kind of stuff. And then it was on Monday in which people started getting, the news started addressing it, giving it its full force of coverage. and what was due to it, because it was a horrible earthquake. But to know that Little Radio Islam was the one that really addressed it
Yes.
and gave it the due course that it needed, that was to me impressive. And as somebody called in from India, I was like, wow. And that was the benefit of being a live TV show. You just never know who's listening. And just to give that person the voice before the Western media was giving a voice to those individuals was really powerful, and it was profound. It was profound.
You developed some relationship with through Radio Islam. I mean, we started to have, of course, our tagline was everyone is talking about Islam and Muslim. It's about time that you talk. I mean, I thought it was beautiful, and but we ended up developing a relationship with the Nobel Peace Laureates. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you remember how it started? I still, by the way, have that relationship. I work with them on Rohingya cause and few other causes. So how did that begin? And I think once you got invited to actually host something what they were doing. So what was our connection?
Yeah. How did that all happen? I can't really put my finger on the first moment, but we did have Marie Maguire. She was on Radio Islam, if I'm not mistaken.
From Ireland, she came here to help us raise funds for Radio Islam.
Right, and I'm sure she was interviewed beforehand.
Okay.
That would just make sense in my head. And then I was at an interfaith event, and there was a Q&A of Nobel laureates, and Jody Williams was there, and she was an American who received the Nobel Peace Prize for the work that she did in eliminating landmines from different countries, different locations. And there was a Q&A that was happening, and I remember standing up all nervous and everything, but just doing my best to have a straight face and be the assertive Janan that I could be. And I asked her, what are the Nobel laureates doing with an old social ill that is happening to a new group of people? And that social ill would be prejudice, discrimination, bigotry, the new group of people being Muslims in America. And it took the Nobel laureates a little bit by surprise, I think, because maybe we weren't on their radar screen. And I'll never forget, and they answered it as adequately as they could. And they were honest. I was like, this is a good question and what we need to do. And they answered it on the fly. And then afterwards, Jody Williams came straight up to me and handed me her business card. So let's be in touch. And so that led to other things. And then I remember I was invited by the Nobel Peace Laureates to join them, Nobel Women's Peace Initiative. I'm sorry, that's what it was.
Yes,
Nobel
that's
Women's Peace. Yeah. To join them on a fact-finding mission to Palestine and Israel to see what can be done, to see what's being done on the ground by peace activists to try to mend the area, to try to move the conversation forward, to try to fix the social injustices that were going on there. And a number of us were invited because of our media connections. And one of the main goals was to amplify the voices that and the stories that we heard during our trip. And so indeed, I remember interviewing Jody and some of the other people there. We were interviewed live from Jerusalem. And that just kind of continued the relationship. So we definitely developed some really good relationships with a number of incredible people.
Islam, instead of just being a talk show, became an instrument of relationship development among neighbors. And that relationship with Global Women Peace Initiative continues. I mean, I was sitting in Oslo, Norway, doing a conference on Burma genocide of Rohingyas. And suddenly it occurred to me, what about I asked different Nobel laureates to sign a statement. So I wrote a very brief statement because there was not much time, that something like that, what is happening in to Rohingyas in Burma is a textbook case of genocide, something like that. I mean, it may be a few words here and there. And within 2-3 days, I was able to get 7 Nobel laureates to sign that. That is started with the Radio Islam right here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was just amazing experience. You remember any other relationship which was developed because of Radio Islam?
Oh, I probably remember it 2 in the morning. So not off the top of my head.
Well,
That
one of
was an impressive one. You know, it was a really good relationship that began. And I think, one thing to attribute it to this is something that one of the first hosts, Humaira Bassett, said. And
yes,
it's this. It's when we reach out to people, the hosts and the producers, and it's more the producers than the hosts, and say, I'm with Radio Islam and we're doing a show on X and we would like for you to be our guest. The reaction, I remember Humaira saying this, the reaction isn't hanging up on us. The reaction is, Radio Islam, that sounds interesting. And that was the first step that led to the building of these relationships. And I think she was very much on the mark with that. It was more often, sounds interesting, and then welcoming the embrace, stepping through the door and being on the air, and then taking things from there. I just going down memory lane. I have to share this one with you. It has nothing to do with kind of has something to do with relationships. I was at the Parliament of the World's Religions, and I met this man. I was just standing. We were waiting for a bus to take a group of Muslims somewhere. I think this was the one it was in. Oh, I can't remember. I think it was in not Barcelona. It was in Melbourne. So a group of Muslims were just kind of supposed to meet at a certain place. We were going to go and be the guests at some mosque. And so I was standing and waiting, and this gentleman comes up to me, and he says salam. I say walaikum salam, and what is your name? And I tell him my name, and I'm kind of like on the quiet side, just didn't know what to say. And so I said, and what's your name? And he said, my name is Abdurrahman Bas. Oh gosh, oh my gosh, Abdurrahman.
Parker.
The name of the Hafid, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm blanking on this. He's the direct descendant of the Imam who wrote about the Hadith. The scholar from way back in the day who laid the foundation for how a Hadith are to be analyzed. Begins with a B. Oh gosh, help me out here. When a hadith is quoted, not Bakr, not oh gosh, how can I be forgetting this?
He was the son of a major scholar.
Yeah. I mean, like a major scholar who wrote up all of these hadith.
Albani?
No. I'm going to find it for you. In the next.
Mustafa Al-Azhari is one of the Mustafa.
No, I'm going to look it up during the break. Okay, because now it's really bothering me.
Okay.
But he said, my name is da-da-da-da-da.
You're watching.
Okay, yeah.
You're watching Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and we're talking about with Janan Hashim and how we transitioned from the daily radio show for 20 years, and now we are Muslim Network TV. We'll be right back after these messages.
We are Justice for All. Headquartered in the heart of downtown Chicago, Justice for All is a global humanitarian initiative dedicated to raising awareness for human rights concerns impacting vulnerable minority groups. We promote policies that protect religious freedom, address the root causes of mass displacement, and recognize the plight of refugees and forced migrants. Our diverse team of staff and volunteers, led by Imam Malik Mujahid, work tirelessly to help Justice for All achieve their goals. Past campaigns covered a wide range of humanitarian concerns. Through Bosnia Task Force, imams and leaders of Chicago's Muslim community worked to ensure Bosnia became a top national issue. This led to life-saving American policies in Bosnia. A key accomplishment was helping to get rape declared a war crime. Initiatives also included Kosovo Task Force, Central African Republic Task Force, and Flint Coalition, which brought awareness to the water crisis affecting the people of Flint, Michigan. Highlights of our work include supporting Black Lives Matter, Parliament of the World's Religions, addressing climate change.
So wasteful consumption starts the ruthless production, and that's where we need all the fossil fuel in the world.
And prominent media exposure.
This is Imam Malik Mujahid, President of Justice for All.
And I'm the Director of Outreach for Justice for All.
And that's why we need to go back to what worked.
Today we're demanding an apology from the CEO of Costco.
The Chinese crackdown on Uyghurs and other Turkic people has only gotten worse.
Current programs such as Burma Task Force advocate for the rights of Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh, internally displaced populations, and all those denied freedom of movement and at risk of starvation. Through this, we mobilized thousands of calls to elected representatives. This paved the way for the U.S. to increase funding for Rohingya refugees from $30 million to over $600 million. 2 of our documentaries were featured on international news outlets. The Rohingya People, A Slow-Burning Genocide, on BBC World News, and Rohingya Refugees Tell of Massacre was featured on CNN. We've organized rallies, UN mission visits, expanded presentations on campuses, promoted research and report writing, outreach to think tanks, media, and other influencers. Faith Coalition educates about the Rohingya genocide and crimes against humanity faced by ethnic groups in Burma. We've traveled to refugee camps, convened a meeting of Karen, Kachin, and Rohingya leaders, both to encourage cooperation and to guide them in congressional outreach. We organized Rohingya Advocacy Day. This led to over 100 participants visiting the offices of 60 U.S. senators and congressional representatives. Free Kashmir advocates for the people of Kashmir. Long-term goals include the call for self-determination, the end of the Indian military's occupation of the territory, and raising awareness of Kashmiri issues among the American people. After the August 5th reinvasion of Kashmir, we organized national protests in front of various Indian government buildings, partnered with Stand With Kashmir, and launched a petition condemning the Gates Foundation's decision to present Prime Minister Modi a humanitarian award. Save Uyghur informs Muslims and neighbors of other faiths about the ongoing cultural genocide of Uyghur Muslims and mobilizes public support. Our projects include boycotting Chinese products with our Fast from China campaign, pushing Bill S-178 in the Senate, and organizing a nationwide protest of Costco. Together, we can continue to stand up for justice. Justice for all.
Welcome back to Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid. With me is Janan Hashim, as well as Matthew Nimi. Welcome to Muslim Network TV, Matthew. Okay, so we'll wait for him to hear and respond. Did you remember, Janan, the name?
Yeah. Abdurrahim was his first name, Bukhari. And so when he said Bukhari, I was just like, oh, okay. And he said, I'm from Palestine. I'm like, okay. And it's like, wait, like Bukhari? And his cheeks turned red and he looked down and he nodded his head. I'm like Imam Bukhari? He's like, yeah, I'm his direct descendant, and I've adopted, he's the one who carried on the tradition of keeping the books of a hadith, and he was a scholar in Palestine. And it was an amazing conversation. So then I made arrangements to interview him on Radio Islam. And I remember the first time we made arrangements, the call wasn't going through. There was some problems going on in Palestine at the time with some Israeli raids that were happening. So the line got cut. So then we rescheduled, had a great interview. He talked to us about the books that he keeps that were the original manuscripts that Imam Bukhari had written. And then he talked about, the work that he did and all that kind of stuff. It was just an amazing interview. What makes it all the more special to me is that 10 days later, he returned to his creator, passing away. And I was like, wow, we got an interview in 10 days before he passed away with an incredible man with incredible personal history and story to share. It was just an amazing opportunity that we were given.
I wish you find time to write down that and maybe use some of those references, because I didn't realize you're talking among the earliest scholar of hadith. I thought you're talking about contemporary, so I keep giving you the contemporary. One of the
no, like old.
So one of the things which I remember about Radio Islam was that it's a bigger impact. I remember Keith Ellison listening to him on Radio Islam as I was driving. And, we had this rule, we don't invite the same guest twice in the same month. You remember those rules, which we used to have. And he was there within a month. So I called the producer. I said, how come you invited him again? She says, what do you think? How was he? I said, he was excellent. He said, that's the reason we decided to break the rule, because he's running for in the primary for the Congress and he need all the support. It just happened because of Radio Islam. I had other connection and I was in AFL-CIO office, and that's where the that's where Governor Howard Dean, who was Democratic Party chairman, Dr. Howard Dean, governor as well. People were referring to me, Imam Mujahid. Say, are you Imam in the Muslim community? I told him, of course, Muslim have monopoly on Imams at least. So he said, I had been interested in Muslim being part of Democratic Party. I said, oh, no. I have no interest taking photos with politicians. Muslim to be on policy table. He said, no, I want Muslim to run for office. And then he called a meeting in the Democratic Party headquarters. And that's where we told him about Keith Ellison. And he fought with me several minutes saying Keith Ellison cannot be Muslim because, some people cannot think that unless there is Abdul or Muhammad or something, they are Muslims. So finally he was convinced, and he put the whole party behind. And when he got elected, I was there in the Washington, D.C. in party office meeting with him. He called Keith Ellison to the party headquarters and told me, Imam Mujahid, I have the honor of presenting you the first Muslim congressman. That thing connected from Radio Islam. So there are a lot of things which happens which people don't get recorded. Similarly, somebody sent me from, I think some journalist from New York, wanted to interview, and he has something in his hand from the State Department. It turned out the State Department have some promotional material of 20, 30 pages. And there were 2 pages dedicated to Radio Islam and Sound Vision, which I had no idea about. So what we were doing, having conversation among neighbors, so conversation was being multiplied to different corners and different places. Do you remember any other things which we did at that time?
Actually, that sparked a memory of a couple of shows that we did that days later, with the same guests and the same angle, was presented by National Public Radio. And I'll never forget, there were a couple of moments in which I'll be listening to Radio Islam, and one of my shows actually was duplicated like that. It was a show that we did on foster cares and foster services and thinking outside the box. And I was just so floored. It was kind of like one of those things where you tell yourself that mimicry is the best form of flattery. You know, when you're being copied, don't take it the wrong way. This is a good thing. So that's another way in which we were impacting the conversation that's being discussed.
I have something similar, you see. I was listening while driving to Radio Islam, and then I was listening to NPR some other day. I said, wait a minute, I have heard this program, which I'm hearing now on NPR. Where did I hear? It happened twice. So I was invited on NPR, and I asked the producer that it has happened a couple of times. I felt that I have watched, and it seems, Hina Alamin, our board member, came up with the idea. You're like Muslim public radio, MPR, because of that. So I asked the producer, and producer laughed. I say, hey, we look for your program list. We get sometime show idea, and sometime we get the same guest to talk about the same topics. So what you are saying to observe, it was confirmed to me by two different producers of NPR.
There we go. There we go. They admitted. They admitted it to it. They admitted to it.
One of the things I remember another show, Janan. Well, are you host or am I host?
We're co-host and co-guest.
Co-host right now. Maybe you should become a host. I mean, how come you are not?
You're reeling me in. You're reeling me in. I knew it.
I was not planning to, but you call it co-host, and that's how it came out. So I was at Radio Islam when NPR National came to interview, and the show was, it was October, I remember. So we had show, it was talking about, there was a breast cancer survivor, and there was a Muslim woman physician. She was there. And I don't know who else was there, and I forgot who was.
An activist.
Were you hosting?
An activist. Yeah, it was my very first show.
Oh, okay. So reporter asked me, I don't know what she asked you. She asked me what breast cancer got to do with Muslims. And for a minute, I thought she has a point. Then I remember, and I told her Muslims have breasts too.
Yeah, exactly. What I love your answer when you shared that with me. I'm like, well, that's a very pointed question, and it's a very pointed answer. So good for you.
Also, you
and that. Yeah, no, that was my very first show. It was actually, if I'm not mistaken, October 10th. Yeah, I can't remember the name of Imam Bukhari, but I can remember the day of my first show on Radio Islam. So yeah, I mean that's I think one of the beautiful things about Radio Islam and the work that Sound Vision wants to put out there is that it is not about, as I said earlier, it's not about talking about only XYZ issues. Muslims experience the whole spectrum of issues just like any other human being does. And whether it's breast cancer, or if it's talking about injustices in the world, if it's talking about whatever it is, we're all talking about it too. But our angle, our perspective might be a little bit unique. It might be identical. And what that provides is that it gives the opportunity for a person who doesn't know a Muslim to see how we're viewing things, that more often than not, we're seeing it through the same lens that they're seeing it. And then in some situations, we might see a little bit differently just because of that Islamic perspective that we bring to the table. This reminds me of the story, being a live show, if a guest cannot make it or if the line gets dropped, you're stuck. I mean, you have to keep talking, you have to keep, doing something. And I had this one show and something happened and we couldn't get the guest through for the last 20 minutes of the show. And so we put a commercial on and I said, bring up some odd news, bring up strange news and we'll just talk about it. And so one of the news items that came up was about broccoli. And at that point in time, the British people were voting for some kind of law, because apparently they can vote for laws if things are set up that way, to say that broccoli is not a food item. That was just one of those things that was there that they were voting on. So I was talking about that, and I was kind of poking fun at it and all that kind of stuff. Somebody called in. We got a caller, and the lady talking on the phone, she was really nice. She gave us a little bit of background. She was driving with her family. They were moving from Wisconsin down to Georgia, and they were stuck in the Chicago traffic. They were just kind of going through the radio, and they heard our conversation. They thought it was hilarious and wanted to chime in and talk about it. And before she talked about broccoli, she said, "I just wanted to tell you that I didn't expect this to be a show that's by Muslims, but it is, and it's really impressive with what you're doing." And then she said in the same breath, "To come to the defense of broccoli, you got to cook it the right way." And we had this great conversation, and it was just really neat. And I remember during the conversation, I had remarked to her, the reason why I know where she was driving from is that she was saying that she had a couple of little children in the car and they were doing this move. Well, I was in the same position myself earlier, like 10 years before that, when I had two little kids moving from Georgia to Chicago. And so we kind of connected along those lines. And again, what is this doing? It is telling the listener out there that we're like everybody else. We're not some kind of foreign, strange, unique kind of individual. We are who we are. We're as American as anybody else. We're as human as anybody else. But we also do carry with us, for those who are practicing, our faith. And even that can be the spectrum. There are people who don't practice but identify as Muslim. And there are people who are very devout. Speaking of that funny story. How many times I would interview an imam? So we always have a pre-production phone call. That was just standard. And I would always call up the guest, and I would say to the guest, this is what to expect, and this is how it's going to unfold. Here's going to be our breaks. And I would always say to the imams, I was like, when we begin, let's just, we're going to just cut right to the chase, and I'll ask you the questions. And so if you can just keep your salam to a salam, that's fine. But we don't really use a lot of Islamic phrases because we don't want to throw off the non-Arab speaker or the non-Muslim, saying, what are those funny sounding words that they're saying? And they say, okay, no problem. And so with some of the imams, welcome to Radio Islam, thank you for being with us. And they would say, peace to you, thank you for having me. But then there will be other imams who will say, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim. And I'm just like, okay, now we're going to cut to a break because you just talked all Arabic for about 10 minutes and we need to go on. So it's just like, what's going on here? But, it's just so funny seeing that whole spectrum and everything. I'm sorry, it's a little anecdote that kind of came to my mind.
Tell me about why you brought some Islamophobes on the show.
Yeah.
Why did you do that, and how was that?
Wow. Robert Spencer. It was Islamofascist Week, a new concept. And of course, we were going to bring in our guests to talk about it. And we had Robert Spencer on at the same time as, he's an activist in, I think, San Francisco. His last name begins with a meme, an M. I can't remember his last name, but he was an activist, very vocal voice. And I had them on at the same time. And we were asking different questions, and Robert Spencer was trying to justify his actions and all that kind of stuff. And I just had the two go back and forth. I kind of played as I would pose a question, I would say who would answer first, and then I would go back to the other person and kind of let the conversation naturally unfold. And the guy from the Muslim voice, I should say, from San Francisco, he was very calm, very educated, making very, very good points, but he was rubbing Robert Spencer the wrong way. Robert Spencer started to get really agitated. And in his agitation, it got the better of him. And this was the one missed opportunity I had on Radio Islam. I wish I could go back in time and fix it. And he said to this guy, "How dare you call me a terrorist?" And there was a 2-second gap. And that's where I wish I could go back in time and say, yeah, now you know what it feels like. I didn't say it. I wish I had. But having that on the air and being able to have him present his voice, having the other side present its voice, one side rising to the occasion, having a sophisticated analysis, staying calm. The other one, who is the one who is accusing the other side of, oh, you guys are all bad people. You lose your tempers. He was the one who lost his temper. It was a pretty, momentous moment for me, and one of those that definitely go down in my memory banks. But I wish I had that moment back to say, well, there was another thing I wish I had asked him in the end, if he could remove my husband's name and my name from the the jihadist watch list or something that he created. But I should have asked that on the air, but I didn't. But really, my greatest regret was not using that 2 seconds of silence to say, now you know what it's like to be called a terrorist. It's unconscionable to be called that.
MashaAllah. Well, so as we come to the conclusion of this show, for 16 years, what was easy? Producing the show or being a host of the show? Which took more time?
Oh, wow. They both presented their different set of challenges, and they were both equally difficult in their own unique ways. Being a producer required a lot of legwork. You have to do the pre-production work, the production work, the post-production work. There's a lot of technical stuff that went into it, a lot of follow-ups with individuals, booking your guests, working with the host to create the content. Most of the hosts eventually weaned off of relying on the producer for content and would be able to do that on their own. But then the flip side, being a host, you have to do your research. Many times the producer would help out with that because we have our regular 9-to-5 jobs. We had our work. And so a producer would help out with providing maybe some leads, some articles to get the juices flowing. But then it would take a number of hours, for me at least. There was no such thing for me as winging it. It would take a few hours just to do the research of where my guest positions were on the issues that we were addressing, and then coming up with the natural follow-up questions to go deeper in the conversation, substantively deeper in the conversation.
A lot of work.
Talking about that broccoli show, that kind of led into Wacky Wednesday, which I know is a show that you didn't like, but it's something that I did because Wednesday nights were my nights. And once a month, we would pull up just crazy, funny things that are happening in the world that are being reported, and we would just talk about it, just to lighten the mood.
As you know, whether it's radio or TV, it's bound by time, and our time is up.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. To be continued.
I'd like to do a sequel of it. It's so many good memories. Thank you so much for whatever you have done for Radio Islam. And just remember that this Muslim Network TV is built on a lot of people's work, including yours. Thank you so much. This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and you're watching Muslim Network TV on Galaxy 19 satellite, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, Roku, as well as a whole lot of social media. I would especially like to thank today Sumaya Heather. Today is the last show she has produced on Radio Islam. She came here as an intern and she's going back to her school. We wish her the best and thank you so much for all what you have done. You will remember it and you'll be able to, inshallah, tell your grandchildren that you are pioneer of the Muslim Network TV. So thank you so much. And thank you, Aliza, and thank you, Abdul Wahid, for producing today. Peace. Salam.